So the seats have a sort of a wood coloured back, and the seats themselves are cream, so that's that little recess. So we can detail paint all of that at the same time. Okay, next job is to paint in the seats. I'm using the ICM 1030 Ivory. I've got to say, I am really enjoying these paints. They are terrific paints. I'm going to use a slightly longer brush. It's going to help me get in to that recess a little bit. So we're just going to thin it. Again, just using some water to thin it. Okay. No doubt this will be 2 coats as well, and we're not using any primer, we're just going straight onto the plastic. So we might get away with 1 if we're lucky. So we've thinned it to a point where we know we've got a bit less control, but we're definitely not going to get any brush marks. I can already see with 2 coats on this, but that's fine. Now these are individual cushions on the actual ship, making up defined individual seats within the row. But for the purposes of this, we'll just paint the whole thing solid. There we go. It's the first side in. And the difference between the white and the ivory is very, very subtle, but it is definitely there. Now for the floor, we're using Bandstand. So we put a darker colour down, which should just add to the depth of colour that we get from this one. Now we'll be thinning this with Vallejo thinners. And you can see I'm putting quite a bit in because we've got probably going to want 2 coats again, and we need to cover a reasonable area. Now actually the darker deck area, the wood deck area, sort of ends here. It's not in a straight line. And then you've got a much paler colour of like linoleum or something there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's a definite difference in the colour. So I'm gonna try and emulate that. We'll see how we get on. Right, so whilst this is drying, we can start laying down this floor area here. I'm going to use beige for that, which is slightly darker than the ivory of the seats, which is about right looking at the photographs. And then where we've got the white plastic, we're going to use deck tan, as we've used before on some of the other ships. I might just put a hint of sand in it just to darken it a little bit, because it doesn't look quite as stark with it being inside, although the roof here opens up, so it can be outside as well. And then once all that's done and that's drying, we can make the bandstand, and that finishes that area off there. So we've got another coat of that to do, couple of coats, maybe 3 with it being beige on the floor, and we'll slowly build up that picture. We have to make a bandstand where the musicians stand. It's a circular area which is about that in diameter. I've been looking through my scraps. That's the wrong colour. I really need it this colour, and you can see there when it gets varnished it deepens up and it'll be a similar colour to the original, so that's all good. So I'm going to use this as a template to cut this out. And then we need to make a backing plate that goes behind it. That needs to be curved as well, so I'm going to curve a piece under steam and put a curve in. So that's the plan, and then we'll have ourselves a little platform, and then we can consider if we want to put a drum kit on it or not. So these are the basic elements of my drum kit. I've got two little stand-up drums and the kick drum, and then those two rods are going to be for the cymbals. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue them in place, then we're going to paint them, and then we'll put a front on the drum and a couple of cymbals using bits from there. I'm thinking sparkly pink or purple is the way to go with the drum kit. So to do that, we're going to have to mix a metallic silver with some purple to get it sparkly. So let's start by gluing the bits on.
First class restaurant, a tremendous space, being able to seat all the first class passengers in one sitting. The Art Deco influence here, exquisitely decorated with various woods from around the empire, glass, chromium. Here's another rendering of the restaurant, spanning several decks high, and the marvellous glass etched map at one end of the restaurant showing the track from Southampton to New York, where little crystal models of initially just the Queen Mary and then latterly the first Queen Elizabeth would be placed on the various positions so passengers could see where they were crossing the Atlantic. First class observation lounge at the forward end of the promenade deck, views out across the bow, marvellous bar, no doubt a favourite spot for the first class here. But of course, the onset of war, September 1939, Queen Mary was called up to become a troop ship, and she shuttled across the Atlantic and various other places carrying up to 18,000 troops. But we see here the ship on a particularly stormy voyage with the whole bow disappearing under the swell and the spray. So it must have been quite lively on board with so many. When you think she was designed to carry just over 2,000 passengers, with 14 to 18,000 on, must have been very, very cramped. And she had largely uneventful war career, except sadly on one voyage, while zigzagging across the Atlantic with her escort, the cruiser Curacao, there was a miscalculation, and Queen Mary actually rammed the cruiser and cut it in half, but nonetheless had to carry on because it would have been too dangerous to have stopped in U-boat infested waters. And that occurred on the 2nd of October 1942. The cruiser was completely cut in half and rapidly sank. Many people on the Queen Mary, in fact, only felt a very slight bump. And here we see the consequence of that, the wrecked stem that was patched up and eventually more permanent repairs undertaken. But you can see the stem of the Queen is bent completely over there. We see all the troops on the foredeck. She did sterling service alongside her running mate, Queen Elizabeth, and Churchill estimated that these two ships probably shortened the war by a year in that they carried so many troops so quickly where they were needed. And then after the war, Queen Mary remained in government service for a period of time, this time taking back GI war brides from Europe over to the United States. Then came the refitting of the ship, ready for commercial service once again.
So somehow the masking tape has left its tape behind and is separated from the actual tape. So it's delaminated when removing the tape, losing the adhesive behind. So that tape's been on there for about 2 weeks actually, but I wouldn't have expected it to do that. Fortunately, I'm finding a bit of white spirit, dampening it with some white spirit and wiping it with a little bit of tissue is actually removing it. But yeah, that is not good. The brand of tape I've used, I'm just trying to remember, but I think it is Humbrol. So I'll have to do a bit of touch-up now, which is annoying. Can do without the extra tasks, but it's going to still be quicker than having to strip it and repaint it all, which is where I thought it was going to be. Right, once we've done the touch-up on that one, the other one being okay, we can pull our funnel together. We've just got to mask this off and give it the white top coat. We can gently sand that red back so that we don't have to do more than one coat, and then that is job done for this piece other than painting in the grills. Right, just dry fitting the superstructures here. It all seems to be okay. We're going to have to glue these two sections together first because that sits on top of there, and those little location ridges there sit underneath that. So you've got to go in at an angle and sort of clip it over and then get it to sit. So we need to do that on a flat surface. So we're going to glue that in next job. So I think my approach is to get it fitted together, and then, if we can, it's not well thought out at all, this. The engineering leaves something to be desired on this kit. There we go. In on that side, in on that side. In. Right. We are in place. So I'm going to very carefully try and glue this from the underside, which is going to be trickier than I hoped. Yeah, it's just rubbish engineering. They've not thought through how it's going to build up. They've not thought about how do you apply the glue. How easy is this to do? It's a real rubbish. In places, this has been quite an annoying build, to be honest. It's a good job I've got the patience of a saint, really. Right, there we go. So I'm going to leave that just to harden up a little bit. I'll be glad when it's on there. It'll feel like a much stronger construction then. So I can gently turn that round. Yeah, making sure it's all flat, which it is. Well, you know, you've got every part needs to be pinched in and manipulated to fit. And I know the kit's getting on a little bit now, but it's not actually that old. It's why I don't build a lot of Revell kits, because they're not. So I'll just hold that in place. I can't even switch the camera off, so you've got to watch. Oh, I could edit it out, couldn't I? I'm just holding it all in place while it just sets. Be glad when this bit's on. It's the centerpiece of the ship, I think, and your eye is automatically drawn to the bright funnel against all the white and beige deck. Oh, there we go. So with our central part of the upper superstructure in place, we can now add some more bits, including this piece here. I've just noticed I need to remove the location lines for the plastic railing, so that's a fairly quick job, so we'll just do that now. Just need to sand that back. Okay, So we'll just test fit that. Yeah, fit of that is good. So we can glue that into place now. There we go. So that's your base structure in. We do have to play around with some bits, but that gives us our starting point. Just hold that down for a sec. And then we've got this structure to go in here. There we go, and then we have the structure that goes in at the stern here, which we've taken out the location point for so that it now fits. Just have to make sure that's nice and straight. So let's get that on, and then we've got all the major structures in place. There we go, just hold that down for a moment. That's sitting comfortably now, so that completes step 38 and step 39, which was that last piece we just put on. So that takes us, right, okay, so that takes us up to step 45, which is building the fast motor launch, which sits on this point here. Includes building this up and adding the davit, which we've not done yet. So we've already done a fair amount of this, so we can't add the davit until we add the boat. So let's get the boat done, and as we're doing the boat, that means we need to paint in all the lifeboat tops. So that is the next job. So I originally intended to use the Vallejo orange. You can see I've put it down, and I'm not happy with the shade. It's just a little on the dark side, but I think it does work well on these side skirts. They're sort of canvas things that roll up and down. So I'm going to try the ICM medium orange, which is 1045. It's just that bit brighter, and I think that's going to look just that little bit better. And the great thing about these paints are you can thin them with water, they're easy to use, and they brush really, really well. So I've not used this particular colour before, so it'll be the first time. The other thing I like about them is they're not dropper bottles. I really don't like dropper bottles because you can't get in and mix them if you need to. So with most of the ICM paints, you're looking at 3 to 4 coats when you're brush painting with them. But with orange, it's a bit like yellow. You might need a little bit more. But as we've got a base colour down, I'm hoping we won't be that far off first time. So we've got a little bit of paint in there, not too much. And we'll just dip the brush in, just add a small amount of water. Adding another brush load full. And we'll see how it brushes, because it's going to be very difficult to airbrush it because of some of the requirement on here. But we'll start with this high-speed rib and see how we get on. Oh yeah, I am definitely happier with this colour. Yeah, I think that definitely looks more like the colour we're after. Yeah, happy with that. Right, so I'm going to mix some more paint because we've got quite a bit to do, and we'll crack on with that. Right, time to get this little fast motorboat together and installed. So it has a davit that it sits on, and then we install it into there. So we're going to have a little bit of glue drying time between a couple of these stages, but I'm just going to start by getting our glue on here. Okay, that's nice and sticky now. There we go. Get some glue in there. Now we need to put some glue just in here, get that starting to dissolve. Okay, that's on. Let me grab my tweezers. It's a little bit tricky to see whether that's in or not, to be honest. Yeah, looks like it is. There we go. So we can leave that to dry. So that's our first Lifeboat installed, and I've got to say I'm happier with the ICM orange than I was with the Vallejo one that I'd originally planned to use. Right, now I can't put the rest of the boats in. They are painted up in terms of painted up the orange, but we need to put railings in, and I've got one or two other bits and pieces I want to do first. We've also got some storage boxes and things as well. But as far as the instructions go, and I'm sort of following the instruction steps again at the moment, that's step 45, 46 and 47 done there. So step 48 is actually installing some parts on the superstructure, but actually what I want to do is get my sports courts cages put in. So that's my next job. Right, I'm fitting the basketball court first, which is this one here. So I'm using thin CA, so it's just pooled on a bottle top and we can dab it in. I've actually managed to break this when folding it, the end has come off. So we've glued the back and this side in, and I've left that loose so that I can get it correct when I put this in. So my plan is to put this in next, like so. And then we can run a little bit of glue down there. So let's do that. It snapped off because I've just folded it a little bit too much and fatigued the metal. There we go. So that should hold now. We've got netting to go on the inside of that, which will further tighten that up. Then we have a little, I'm not quite sure what it is, to be honest. We have another little area here that needs to go there like that. So let's get that glued in. There we go. You can see that glue making contact. So that's our first two in, and then we have this larger one which goes on this side here, like so. And what we'll do is we'll put it into place and then we'll close it up. So I'm going to glue three sides but not the end. Okay. So I can see I'm just holding that closed, and I'm just going to run some glue into the joint now. There we go, so that's done. Now I can see that's making contact all the way around. So there we go. That's fine. So the next thing to do with those is to put the netting in. So we've cut the netting. It's not been painted yet, so we will come back to that at some point in the near future, I think.